Okay, listen.
Yes, Gifty, let me just say something about the bus. I'll tell you mine, but let me just say something about the bus issue. Now, when the president says it is unregulated, fine. But everybody who deals in the downstream has to be licensed by the NPA.
Yes.
Whatever you do.
Yes, but there are specific licenses for specific activities.
Yeah, but I'm saying whatever you
Build
do
your point, please.
has to be licensed by the NPA. Now, the point here is this. When the BOST went to, did their own technical findings, it was realized that they could have done a bit of blending. The point you have here is that what happened is not expected to happen.
No, I don't get that.
I'll tell you what. See, there is a slop and there's a sledge that you can, these are, when you speak to the experts, they don't, it's not in excess of 10,000 liters.
Okay.
Okay. So when it happens like that, we can dispose it off for industrial purposes.
But we're looking at 5 million
You're
liters.
looking at 5 million liters, and you're told that it's something that has gone on in the past also. When you then come out to say, and this is something which shouldn't be happening, what we have now is something that is not expected to happen. So when you come back and say that, okay, so we need a regulation on all of this, what you're doing is legitimizing an illegality, if you ask me.
Legitimizing an illegality in
it is something which should not happen. You're legitimizing a wrong thing.
So once you say that it shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen.
And it's happening.
And it's happening.
So once you begin to say that it is not regulated.
Because the moment you start saying, oh, it's not regulated, what you would do.
Everybody else could do it.
Is that, okay, now there's a regulation on how to go about it.
Yes.
Gifty,
because that's the point.
I think there's a need for some small clarification.
All right, hold on,
here.
Kojo. Let him wrap up with this point then.
So my point is simple. Okay, the off-spec that we had, BOST told us of the 3 options that were available to them. We all know the story very well now, what they could have done. Of all the checks that I have done, it indicates that this is not something. There are times that people, yes, you can come out and say, oh, it's negligence and all of that. But there's a school of thought that believes that certain persons do it deliberately. Yeah. That is why I say, and I repeat, that having regulations for the sale of off-spec is legitimizing a wrongdoing. It shouldn't happen in the first place.
It shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Exactly.
But the reality is that it has.
The reality is that it has, and you can blend.
Okay.
Some slight correction is required
Please.
here. Okay, so this expression off-spec, it causes a bit of confusion.
Because of the differences,
let's take the opportunity to clarify it.
Okay.
So basically, there's a certain spec of fuel that can be sold to the general public for using in your vehicles and so forth. Any fuel that doesn't meet that spec is termed off-spec. So that off-spec expression describes many different kinds of fuel that cannot be used in a vehicle. One of them, perhaps the most popular kind, is slop or sludge. This is what is cleaned out from the tanks after they've been used to store fuel for long periods of time. Now that slop and sludge can be processed into products legally. Okay, there are industries that are set up to do that. Zoop Oil is a company that does that.
Right.
Okay, so that is a legal transaction, legal practice. And slop and sludge is produced constantly. As long as you keep using these tanks, you keep creating slop and sludge. But like Winston said, it's Winston, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Winston said, never more than 10, 20,000 liters. In fact, even if you use every single tank, storage tank available to BOST throughout the year, you can never produce more than 45,000 liters of slop and sludge. Okay. So that is legal. But the buying and selling of it, so a company set up to buy slop from, from BOST and sell it to a company like Zoop Oil. And there is no license at NPA to cover that transaction.
Okay.
However,
but
a company like Zoop
proper.
Oil, bear with me. However, a company like Zoop Oil, which is set up to process off-spec or slop and sludge,
will require,
and there is a license for that. Okay.
So his point is that
this particular product was contaminated fuel. So petrol and diesel were mixed by accident. Okay.
5 million liters.
Yes, this has never happened.
I like
Winston
the
is
yes.
saying. Yes, it has never happened. All right, according to the records at BOST. It has never happened, although we are hearing suspicions that it is something that actually perhaps was happening quite a lot in the past. But let's not touch that because we don't have evidence. According to the records, this has never happened. Okay? And so this time around, when it happened, the argument of the president and the ministry is that this was the first time that they had contaminated fuel.
So it's like a wake-up call.
Which was not slop or sludge.
So it's a wake-up call for us.
They didn't know what the regulation is for trading it. But the reality is there is no regulation for trading, buying and selling even slop and sludge. Okay? There's none.
Okay. So you see, if you look at the NPA Act, Section 11, a person, and of course a person here is body corporate, like, shall not engage in a business or commercial activity in the downstream industry unless that person has been granted a license for that purpose by the board. Now, the business or commercial activities of the downstream in respect of crude oil, gasoline, diesel, LPG, kerosene, and other designated petroleum products are importation, exportation, what it goes on, sale, marketing, and all of it. The point I'm making simply is that if you look at Section 11 here, it says you shall not engage in any business in the downstream if you're not licensed. So
if the, so that's Kojo's point that there isn't
whatever you do, and that's how come the
has
NPA
to be regulated.
Started by saying that they didn't have licenses. The point is that that company in the first place shouldn't have worked. My point here is very simple. My point is the fact that, and he agrees with me, when you are saying, there's a contamination. We're told that, in the past we've sold more than 20 million or so of that.
Yes, of slop, by the way.
Yes.
20 million is supposed to be slop.
Slop in 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
2 years.
2 years, which the experts say can't happen.
You can't get more than 45,000
The experts say it can't happen. So what you see is that this is a booming trade.
Okay.
At BOST. And you as the days go by, But this is something that is happening at BOST. And so for a minister and for the president to say the same thing, it started with Boache Jako. Oh, there's no regulation. My point is that you're going to regulate a wrongdoing. You're going to legitimize a wrongdoing. What you should be doing, how on earth, Gifty? We have one tank. We have one channel.
Just so we don't get so much into the
but I think that that particular response given by the president was inappropriate. I think that the presidency, as well as the government, hasn't handled this issue properly.
Okay.
I agree there should have been follow-ups. Now maybe I would go to my issue, which I felt that should have been probed a further issue of the economy.
The economy?
Yes, particularly the bit about borrowing.
The borrowing.
Yes, because I say that because...
This is Bernard's question?
Yes, in the build-up to the election, the NPP had made all sort of claims about, Ghana being rich. And I agreed that, in fact, Ghana was rich and Ghana could do, why? Because, one, a memo sent to the Chief of Staff in 2015, in April, makes the point by Anthony Doku, who was then Deputy Commissioner at the Ghana Revenue Authority, makes the point that, look, we lose an estimated 36 billion Ghana cedis at the port annually. Another estimated 25 billion as a result of non-filing of tax returns. If you add everything to it, we lose about 66 billion annually based on the job that they had done. And so for somebody to have come out to say, okay, so we have money in Ghana, it makes sense.
Okay.
Because if you're able to block
all of those loopholes, that we've got a lot of money. Okay.
But you see.
But the Vice President answered that question.
He answered that question by telling all of us that, even if I borrow, by the end of the year, the debt to GDP ratio will be some 71–70%. Okay? But you see, the funny aspect here is that, Gifty, the GDP for last year was around 160 billion or so, Ghana cedis.
Okay. You're
looking at a projected GDP of 203 billion Ghana cedis this year. It's a projection. Just do the math.
I don't like math.
Well, just do the math. I think I was trying to.
Maybe Kojo does.
I was trying to do the math.
But I don't.
So if you look at 72% of 160, you have about 115 billion. I think I noticed about 120 billion or so. Now, if you look at 70% of 203, you get 142 billion. You would have increased the debt stock. My point is that get to work. Okay, you've been talking. Okay, so we are going to go paperless. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But my simple and I would have loved it that the journalists who were there would have picked up on that, because
to ask follow-up questions.
Because in the build up to the election, you told all of us, you see, don't come back. My point is, don't come back.
They said they're replacing short-term debts with, was it long-term debts? Am I correct for that?
The same thing that if we felt it wasn't that smart borrowing, we felt it wasn't smart in the past. when the NDC talked about. I'm not interested in the U2 fallacies. I'm not going there. So my point is simply what you have said.
Okay.
So I hold you on what you said.
Right.
And based on what Dr. Bamia said.
But also, you also know that some of Bernard's figures were from projections, not necessarily.
But Gifty, the point is, whenever you ask a finance minister during a fiscal year, and he tells you that we're targeting this, they are all projections.
Okay.
So my point is that, I mean, we've had this discussion. Last year when they were telling us that the debt to GDP was 63%, it was because of projection of the year-ending GDP.
Okay.
They always would use the year-ending GDP. They wouldn't use it now. So that's aside. But for me, I feel that having campaigned on we have the money in Ghana,
we should not be borrowing.
You should be telling us where the money is. And don't tell me that Flemzio, by the end of the year, would have reduced the debt to GDP ratio. Of course, you can reduce the debt to GDP ratio.
But you see,
it doesn't solve the problem of borrowing. You said that 70% was on a high side.
Okay, but
you're still targeting 70%.
But again, on the economy, they did say, and I haven't seen anyone who has challenged that yet, that the economy is on a very good path, recovery path. They talk about the reduction in interest rates, for instance, from say 22. I think T-bill, for instance, was like 22. Now it's about 12, 11. That's a good sign.
At the end of the year, T-bill was not 22%. At the end of 26, it was around 16.17%.
Okay.
What they have done is to tell you the figure of the T-bill rate somewhere January last year or around June.
But it's still, yeah, it's
gone down.
It's still the same.
And anybody who knows, if you ask the industry players, anybody who knows Ken Ofori-Atta will tell you that the moment Ken was made finance minister, they knew T-bill rates were going to go down.
I see.
But that notwithstanding also, all these things are supposed to translate in a lot of things, okay?
Okay.
And I like the figures don't lie kind of lecture, okay? And so if you have a government that has been reducing policy rate, okay, which in itself, I mean, in the past, we were using policy rate to target a reduction in inflation. And ever since this government came into office, they've been reducing the policy rate. What it tells you is that some way, somehow, things were beginning to go well. But moving on again, Gifty, when you make that point, if you reduce policy rate, you expect naturally, because in the past, I remember very well in 2011 when we're advocating that a policy rate of around 12%, and so it should correspond to interest rates. There was a reduction of the base rate of most of the banks to sometimes 17, and that reflected. That is not reflecting now.
You think that even though they say that things are picking up in terms of the economy, people are not feeling it in their pockets?
Well, I mean, there's some renewed. One thing I'd say is that the economists will tell you that when there's confidence in the economy, a lot of things will happen. I think the confidence in the Ghanaian economy compared to the times of the NDC, it is better now. And so that in itself can help things to
hopefully.
And that's how come the critics ask that they should state one policy they put in place. I am not interested in that. I'm interested in what he said. The debts, you're not going to borrow, get us the money.
Okay, get us the money. Kojo, let me bring you in on the Woyome. What he says about Woyome's case. He says that he doesn't expect any flimsy cases to be made, on the part of government or on the part of the state's attorneys, but that with time we'll be able to recover the money from Woyome. Of course, a lot of people have said that this is a president that's respecting the processes, but there are others who think that it wasn't a strong answer enough for the amounts that we're seeking to recover from this man.
Well, actually, regarding the Woyome matter, I think his response was very familiar, wasn't it? Very similar to what former President Mahama said at a Meet the Press encounter on the same issue of Woyome. Yeah, that's what his day will come, and that due process must be followed. Well, I don't think they are wrong. I think that's the truth, yeah. Due process must be followed. But it's very different from what they were saying when they were on the campaign trail.
Right.
And that's my concern. When you go on the campaign trail and actually accuse people of corruption, the expectation, especially since the president is a lawyer, the expectation is that you won't make such accusations publicly without evidence. You come into office and you tell us you don't have evidence. You have to take your time and gather this evidence.
The reality sets in when you come into into office?
No, I think the reality set in when they were on the campaign trail, but they were disingenuous to the public because they wanted votes. And this is something that we need to start getting used to from politicians. They will say whatever they think will get them power.
Right.
We have to understand that, and it's the same for politicians from every party. They will say whatever it takes, and we need to have that prism, okay, that we look through when we are assessing their words and deeds. And we have to understand that these people, they are motivated to say things that they can't prove.
Right.
Just in order to
get the
power.
votes.
So now they're here, and all of a sudden it's a job getting evidence to back the claims they've been making at the top of their voices during campaigns. I really didn't expect to hear that from this president, but clearly change has come, but nothing has changed.
Change has come, and nothing has changed. Lots of people have said, though, that 6 months is just too early to start judging. So wait until maybe after, what did you say, 18 months? When he has created all the jobs and everything.
Well, I think that we should always take every government's decisions on a case-by-case basis. There's no such thing as too early. Every time they make a decision, they are making it on our behalf. And we have the right, in fact, we have the duty as the media to scrutinize every decision they make. Not to wait for a year and then take all the year's decisions and scrutinize them together.
Well, some of the decisions will need time to review.
Yes, in that case, you leave any decision that requires time, you leave it. But you don't simply leave the government to function without scrutiny for a year before you start scrutinizing them.
All right. Let me take your view on what was your what for you was your highest point in this media encounter?
Well, I think for me, the high was the president's rather relaxed delivery, you know, and there was a bit of humor as well. Those who know him know that he's actually quite a humorous person. But it's not a part of him that is always on display. Okay. So for me, that was the most enjoyable part of the interaction.
You laughed your head off.
Yeah, I mean, not just that, but he made the room relax. Okay. I don't know how it came out on TV, but in
it did come out.
In the room, it created a certain diffusion, which was very nice, very good. It's something he's particularly good at, but he doesn't do all the time. So that was my highlight.
That was your, and the lowest will be?
I think the low for me will be the answer to the bust question.
The bust.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, Winston, you?
Well, I think the low would be, answers to the economy and a bit on job creation, because there's a planting for food and jobs which is targeted at creating some number of jobs. 250,000 or 750,000 jobs. It's been rolled out. They tell us that so far 180,000 people have registered out of the estimated 200,000. And so once you begin to talk like that, you might as well follow up and know what is happening to one of your flagship programs, Planting for Food and Jobs. I feel that some of the questions could have been better, but of course, I've stated them,
Okay.
But like we know fairly too well, these are things that we should expect. I'm struggling in my mind to get the high, except that I think that, some of the president's responses were not, he was evasive in some of his response, that's a low. I think on the whole, I mean, he was relaxed, but I'm struggling to get a high.
I see. You're struggling to get a high. Oh my God, we may need something else that can give you a high. Something else. Kojo can give you suggestions at the end, after the show.
Why are you trying to bring me in on your little hole digging exercise?
Okay. But you see, well, I love this shit. I love the shit. The fabric is something that reminds me a lot of my grandmother. So I love this shit. Okay. Well. Just so you know, okay. What am I saying? I was still struggling to find a high for you. Okay.
I mean, I've struggled enough, and I still couldn't
struggled enough. So. Okay. So for those of you who are following, I just put a picture on Facebook like I used to, and so I'll read a few of your comments. So just so you know that I pay attention to you as well, right? Okay. So Cecil Kobna says, EC boss Charlotte Osei needs to be firm. Dr. Farijan went through worse things than what is happening to her now. So you're referring to the EC Ibn Alidu Yao says, OMG, my light has just been taken away. I'm sorry about that. Okay, Isaac Ayate says, I think some of the questions which were asked were not important for we Ghanaians. Example, that of the Peace FM lady. Journalists should understand that the platform is for us Ghanaians to get answers from the president on issues bothering the country, not to personalize it with the president. For Bernard question, okay, so you have a thumbs up for Bernard's question, and he says, love your outfit. Thank you very much. You're referring to the Peace FM lady was one who asked about the gender award. Kojo won't agree with you because he thinks that was a good question. What did you do to have merited that award? I think that's a good question as well.
What do you think got you the award?
Yeah, because the president didn't know.
Yes.
He himself didn't know.
But Gifty, what do you think got you the award? He said I didn't ask Amina Fakonde.
No, yeah, he said you should have asked that.
I should have asked. Maybe I should have asked her.
Yeah, so he didn't know.
Yes, he didn't know.
So, but you see, he said that maybe it's supposed to inspire him to do more, which, yeah.
Okay.
What?
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Which was a clever answer, but I think it was also an admission. An admission that he didn't really think he deserved the award.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
I mean, Kojo is here, for that award. Kojo has a lot of, female, anyway.
What are you?
Okay, so Al-Hassan Sumani Jr. says following. Al-Hassan, thank you for watching. Moses a Champion says, nice. Kojo Dache Hene KD says, watching you like Gifty. You look awesome there. Thank you. The faceless petition should be investigated by the government so we know the truth in it. Simple. Bashala Sosai will continue to do her job as the EC chairperson. Afarijan went through worse situations. She should stand firm and continue to work for Mother Ghana. Elections are won at the polling station. I rest my case. Thank you very much for your comment. So you're still watching The Pulse. Seriously? You're still watching Editors Forum with me, Gifty and up here. All right, just when the president was basically, encountering the media with what he believed he had done and the questions that he thought they should put to him, there was this group of people who were also putting their response together. I'm talking about the NDC. So the Kwekwanansi response to Valley of the Shadow of Dead Governance, according to the NDC, came off a day after the president had met with the media. Let's look at the content. And I'm capturing it under their own themes. One, they said lawlessness and insecurity, government-backed terrorism, composition of government, nepotism, unbridled partisanship, lack of commitment to fight corruption, arrogance of power, lies and dishonesty. That's the content. What they put out. We'll go on and talk about the language, which a lot of people have laughed about actually. Maybe look at the delivery and the body language, but did the response, if it is supposed to be a response on the minority to the media encounter and the issues that were raised, did it sound to you like something that was a proactive response from a proactive opposition?
I don't know how proactive it is to say that you have evidence of who is behind some armed robberies and killings of police officers.
Right.
But your choice of how to use that evidence is to come and hold a press conference and not to go and report it to the police. I don't know how proactive that is. And to be honest, I've learned a bitter lesson with the NDC and their communication. Very often you hear people like Mr. Portufi have press conferences where they say things you cannot believe are coming out of the lips of an adult. But as soon as you start criticizing it, you are forgetting that they know their audience. They know their audience. If you are speaking to a group of people who are looking for something to hang around the neck of government, to blame them for whatever, then it doesn't matter what you say. As long as it's negative enough, you'll get people who support you.
But then, in this case, your audience is not only your foot soldiers or your party people. Your audience is the entire nation. You organize a press conference, you're inviting the entire media of this country, and you're looking to speak to them. So it's no longer your
like I said in the past, I
constituency.
often fall into the group of people who listen to what is said and look for the intellectual content and don't find it. But in the past, while I have been looking for intellectual content, there have been masses of people who are totally satisfied with whatever is put out there by the leaders of their party.
I see.
You know, so what I'm saying is that let's not discard the fact that there are millions, teams of people who would have heard that press conference and thought it was excellent. Okay, let's not discard that. But of course, when you do some critical analysis of what was said, it becomes very difficult to find substance in some of the things. They had some important points to make, you know, some important points. But unfortunately, they were drowned by the absurd and ridiculous inferences and references that were made by Mr. Portofie. I don't know if he wrote that thing himself. If he did, then honestly, maybe he should get some help next time, because he kind of undid any positive work that could have been hidden in there by creating headlines that are just ridiculous.
One thing he did, you know, quite well though, is to still put it out. I mean, irrespective of the deficiencies of the script, they put it out there that they believe that people, the people within government who are behind the killings of those policemen, the policemen.
You're saying he did that well?
I mean, that did stand out. So you still got the message, basically.
Okay, so what's the message? That he's aware.
That they have intelligence. The NDC
he knows of
has intelligence.
He knows of the identities of criminals.
Right.
So what's he going to do?
What's he going to do? He puts it out there for us.
For us. So what can you and I now do?
We ask the police.
Maybe Kofi Portofie should be invited to provide the names and help the police.
Mr. Portofie should find his nearest police station.
And report.
And as a Ghanaian, a conscientious Ghanaian, report what he knows, if it will assist the police. I don't know what he expects you and I to do. What can you do, Gifty, with the information he's given?
Okay. What's it?
Well, I must say that listening to Kofi Portofie, I tend to believe that the NDC chairman hasn't learnt a lot from his party's defeat at the polls. Because if you speak to some executives of the NDC, and that's you know what the point that you were making, Kojo, I think that a lot of the NDC's own foot soldiers are beginning to realize that some of the things that their leaders say are not true. And so if you go to, and I'll give you a typical example, one of the things I learned was that, I mean, in one of the areas within the Eastern region, they said a lot of things about Akufo-Addo. And one of the things, you know, so when the people eventually met him, they were so disappointed with their leadership, and they told them, based on these things that you've told me, or you've told us, we're not going to vote. We feel deceived. It is no longer, I think the Ghanaian voter, you might say that, oh, they know their audience, but those audience are becoming discerning. So if you go out there and you put some of these things out, what you're doing is hurting your party and not helping your party, unfortunately.
Kojo has just told you how there is a certain constituency that will appreciate this kind of
response. And I'm telling you that that constituency is beginning to realize that a lot of the things they're told are not true. And I have had conversations, I'm not going to mention names, I can't mention names, but I've had conversations with people, executives of the party, who have said that, look, wherever we went, we mentioned Akufo-Addo's name and said all manner of things about him. Whenever he went to those same places, the people realized that the things we said about him were not true. Sometimes we had gone there and said, oh, he can't do this, he's what, he's sick, he's that. So people see and say, that's how normal boy. My point simply is that the era of, always resorting to, I know my audience. Yes, we will say that, oh, you should appeal to the emotions of people. Right. But if this is appealing to the emotions of the people, I always have something they say. This
should not come from
him. Should not have been coming from Kofi Portofie.
I see. Who then should it come from?
If a serial caller had said these things, you probably would say, oh, okay, it's one of those things. Because there are a lot of intelligent people within the NDC.
Exactly.
Look, I have listened to, and I mentioned this man's name, Isaac Adongo, for instance. I have listened to him critiquing the president's encounter with the press, and he made a lot of sense. I spoke with him on hot issues.
Right.
And I thought he made a lot of sense. And people like him should be the ones critiquing the president's, meeting with the press, and not the likes of Kofi Portofie. For how long are you going to, bring our politics to that law of always going there, he's spending our money buying Botox? My goodness.
Okay. A few people on social media have been mocking him, actually. I'm calling him names. I'm not sure that's appropriate either. Some of them have called him, because of the headband
he wore
he wore that looked like Tupac's, and they've been mocking him. But it's not proper, is it, Kojo?
Is that a question you would like me to ask? Well, I mean, name calling is
wrong.
Is never pleasant for the person who is being called names.
Right.
I think that much as it shouldn't be encouraged, at the same time, I think public figures ought to figure out that some of these things are self-inflicted.
Matters, right.
And that there are ways in which they can act and speak which will avoid some of these
Does
things.
this raise issues of leadership within the NDC? It's part of the discussion that's been ongoing. Whether or not people couldn't have helped with the script. People, like you've mentioned, Isaac Adongo, like, didn't anybody look through it? Because it seemed it lacked, I mean, all of you have agreed that it lacked a certain intellectual, feel.
These parties have a certain tradition, and NDC has their own. Communication in the party comes from the top down. They are a lot better at parroting a message than the NPP are. The NPP is full of people who believe that they can move things along on their own steam. So it doesn't matter what was said by the head, they also have their own view and they'll say something else. But within the NDC, whatever they are told to say, they all follow it and say it quite well. That has been our experience of them. So the communication comes from the top down. Nobody from the side comes to tell the top what to do, unless the top comes seeking their opinion. So I think, again, this falls back squarely on the heads of whomever put this delivery, this presentation together for and with Mr. Portofie. I think they need to take responsibility for whatever went wrong here, and accept that there are resources in their party. Like Winston is saying, Mr. Adongo is particularly impressive. I think he has he's let's just say he is skilled at taking the issues and sticking to them. There are many others who would divert the conversation, and then it starts to seem as if they don't have any. There's no kernel to their
But I'm struggling
comments.
to look for the bit where he mentions the Kukwana thing in the script. I keep looking through the script because I'm trying to find it and look at the context within which it was used. And
Volta crocodiles.
Volta crocodile, exactly.
What was that?
I don't know. Is it no? But to be fair to him, wouldn't it be that, I mean, as a communicator, you're looking for ways to engage your audience, to try and have their attention, so you're not boring. So create a certain
as a communicator, you should be able to strike the balance. You should be able to let your audience see what is serious and what is meant to, wake them up or make them laugh.
Look, isn't the Volta crocodile thing, for instance, meant to say that there are others with all kinds of names?
Look, Gifty, let me tell you something.
How did it go down for you when you heard him say that? Did you remember anything else that he was saying? Did his point hit home after he said Volta crocodiles?
Let me tell you something.
Well, perhaps it did.
If the NDC, 2004 to 2008, in fact, it started in 1999 to 2000, the NPP had one message. It was at Tamils.
All right.
It worked in 2000, worked in 2004. It failed in 2008. My point is simply this. You must move, your discourse higher.
Okay.
If you do everything Akufo-Addo, and you look for all manner of things, it gets to a point, Ghanaians will become fed up with you. If propaganda is anything to go by, of course you do not say things new, but if you say the same thing over and over again, it gets to a point in time, it just becomes something like, what at all is this man saying? And you could see how people mocked. I mean, look, there are a lot of NDC guys who were unhappy with what Kofi Portofie said. But of course, I mean, he's a leader of the party now. He's come to say something. So if you've listened to them and listened to, how they go about their communication, the people who have taken the NPP on, for instance, on the fact that, okay, so in the first quarter of the year, they were expecting a budget deficit of 1.87 billion. You have a budget deficit of about 5.6 billion, Ghana cedis. These are issues Kofi Portofie should be touching on. Even if you want to do your Volta crocodile, which I felt was irrelevant, you can at least, lift the discussion so we begin to talk about the things that matter. How many people are now talking about, what Kofi Portofie went to say? A lot of people have forgotten about him.
I see,
yes.
But they can remember the irrelevant.
Exactly, but you see, what you sought to do when you're in opposition, one of the things you want to do is to present better alternatives. So people sitting back would say, I think we made a mistake by voting for this party. Maybe the NDC would have done better, except that we're beginning to realize that well, politicians are basically of the same breed, and so it depends on who finds himself in office at a particular time. There's a little bit of difference, but not so much difference. So the point is that if being in opposition is to present an alternative to the government, Kofi Potofie did not.
He did not.
Some members of his party are doing so, but he, the leader of the party, has failed. And so you need to ask yourself the question, who prepared his speech for him?
I don't know.
Maybe the communication officer of the party.
Or maybe he did it himself.
Ah, well.
Maybe. Kojo, what will be your final words on this? You already have said?
I think I've said everything I have to say.
You said
Don't
everything
tempt me to say more.
No, I won't
Mr.
tempt you.
Potofie.
I'm just
I think
asking.
what I've said should be allowed to stand on its own. We shouldn't go too much on this, otherwise we'll start saying things that we might regret.
I see. Well, we don't want to say anything we might regret, but since we're dealing with political parties, we've looked at the NPP, assuming they are, of course, they are a political party that's running the affairs of the country. We looked at the NDC as well. Let's touch briefly on the PNC. Now, the PNC has suspended its general secretary, but he's fighting the decision, of course. And this comes on the heel of the party's 2016 presidential candidate's appointment as ambassador at large by the president. What does this mean for the fight against the winner-takes-all syndrome? It is one of the things that a lot of people have spoken about, and they said that if we don't stop the winner-takes-all, syndrome, we're going to have a country where people are just fighting to get into office just so they could, the caucus, whatever it is, the group, the party, could just have fun. And then people will get into all kinds of corrupt acts just to make money. A lot of people have seen the appointments by the president of the PNC presidential candidates as an attempt to be all-inclusive. And then we've seen all of these things happen. Now let's look at what the implications that this will have within the PNC. Will it further break a party that already doesn't seem to have had the political strength to go any further in our elections? Maybe let me start with you, Winston.
We've seen. Oh, sorry.
Well, the PNC.
Kojo looks tired. I don't know.
Well,
why.
I think that the PNC is lost.
Maybe he needs a high.
The PNC has lost its relevance in Ghana's politics mainly. If you look at their performance over the last 6-7 elections, right from Liman to the first time that Edward Mahama himself contested. I mean, he's been on a downward trend ever since. His votes have kept reducing, and I think that I think he had about 18,000 or so, 20,000 in the votes. I mean, it tells you the sort of position that the PNC has. Yes, you want to engage in an all-inclusive governance, but you see, Gifty, there are rules. All these guys sought to do was that Dr. Mahama, if you decide to accept any position from the NPP, you are the leader of the People's National Convention.
So you should communicate. You
should communicate with your members. They're not saying don't go and do so. They're saying come and talk to us so that we know. Because, Bernard Mona, speaking to him, I can say this because he spoke on air, made the point that early on he was on air denying that Dr. Mahama was going to be made ambassador at large, because when he had spoken to him, he didn't tell him anything of a sort. Then the next moment, he sees the man, being congratulated by the president. He just made mockery of your chairman, national chairman.
Yes, as a chairman.
So for me, yes, we have a situation where Atiq Mohammed has been suspended. As much as he disputes that, the PNC has come out to issue a statement to say, they have suspended him. But if you ask me, I think that is not the way to go. Because it's a party that has only, throughout the country, the elections...
And actually, Atiq happens to be one of the very vocal...
yes, he happens one of the very vocal guys. And one of the guys who actually fought Hassan Ayariga and then supported Edward Mahama to be made, flag bearer of the party. I'm surprised that, all of a sudden... And I'm told, to the extent that I'm told that the meeting was actually to deliberate on Edward Mahama himself.
Right.
Then all of a sudden he says, you know what, we need to pass a vote of confidence on the chairman and the secretary also. Other things have come up, the perception that a lot of things might have happened behind the scenes, and so it was something that had been prepared that it was going to be done to Atiq Mohammed and Bernard Mona in the course of the meeting. I mean, we had all manner of things that were pushed that they should be suspended. I think that a party like the PNC, look, you must instill discipline, but the rules of natural justice such that when you decide to take action against somebody, the person is given a chance to be heard. In this case, they walked out because they felt that it wasn't right. I don't know, from the conversations I've had, they're not giving a chance to be heard. They say it's unconstitutional.
Apparently he was disrespectful to Edward Mahama.
I am saying this, and I tell the PNC, look, it won't get you anywhere.
But you see,
you're losing your relevance. It won't get you anywhere.
okay, so losing their relevance.
So get these guys. You see, rather than suspending people indefinitely and fighting over a 20,000 membership, it won't get you anywhere.
It won't get you anywhere. Kojo, what do you make of this?
Well, it's not it was not the first time we've seen some of these fringe parties having a bit of internal wrangling. I don't think it's going to collapse the PNC. It is a bit needless. I agree with Winston on that. But then again, I also don't think it has any effect whatsoever on winner takes all. So the president has made Dr. Mahama an ambassador at large. Is the winner still not taking all?
Ambassador at large. He's been brought into the fold. I mean, he's going to represent. He's going to represent the country. You know, anywhere. The president can assign him to go anywhere.
Okay. How does that affect the policies, the decisions, the budgeting?
Yeah, he can advise. He can advise on foreign policy.
In what capacity?
Well, he's been brought into the fold, so he's
ambassador at large.
Yes.
So he will advise them at large.
No,
I don't know that it's going to have any kind of effect. I
so?
still don't quite get the rationale of the appointment. I don't think there was any pressure on the president to appoint someone from the PNC, or in fact from anywhere. I don't think either. That was the commentary or the narrative. But for some reason, he decided to do this. I feel it is more of a personal reward.
You think so?
Yeah, because I don't really think it's going to affect.
Let's assume it's a
the
personal
governance reward of the NPP.
But it's like reaching out to beyond your party to bring someone in.
Bring them in as what? Ambassador at large?
So your problem is with the position?
Yeah, the position is a bit of a nothing position. It's not really going to have any impact on how government runs.
Well, the NPP had done it before when Indian, for instance, was
he was a minister.
Yes, so let's assume he was
given several portfolios.
Let's assume that this is a step. This is a step to bring in people from the other side. Just
that's
so
what you would like to assume.
Well, let's assume.
Let's assume that.
No. Let's assume, because I'm looking at the winner takes all thing. And if this is a way. Maybe the ambassador at large is a bit.
No, but it's a position that Kwame Nkrumah had in his time.
So hold on. Let me put my point.
It's a good position for Dr. Mahama. It's not a bad position.
So hold on. Let's assume that this is just a step, that the president is perhaps testing the waters to see how it goes, and this happens. Will it not be something that discourages him from going further if he wants to bring anybody else in from the other side?
I don't think it is a wrongdoing on the part of the president that Dr. Mahama is having difficulties with his party.
No,
right
it's
now.
not.
So I don't think he should discourage the president. All he can do is appoint people. If he wants to appoint someone from another party, there is a procedure for
But then when you appoint someone and you get all of this backlash,
he's not the one getting the backlash. He made an appointment. If the person he appointed had gone through the procedures that his party expected of him, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. Okay. So I don't think this reflects on the president in any way.
Very well. Winston, you were making a point.
No, I'm saying that it's ambassador at large is a position that Kwame Nkrumah had in the past, in the 60s. It's not a bad one.
He was probably cupboard monitor
at
some point in his life as well.
He could take decisions on behalf of the president in relation to the ambassadors. This is a position that initially when I heard of it, it was supposed to be ambassador general. Eventually becomes ambassador at large. But it's something that Edward Mahama definitely knew he was going to get, some 5 or 6 months before the announcement of it. And that for me is the reason why I find it, surprising that he didn't, deem it necessary to inform his party members, because his party members have made the point that in the past you had led campaigns against it, which he denies anyway. Edward Mahama denies, But I sincerely think that this is needless. The PNC, it's like the CPP or die.
It will die, and then we'll move on.
No, when they merge, they won't die. But if they continue like this, because you see, it's been going down. I started by giving you 1992 to 2012. It started from Edward Mahama had about 200,000 the first time. It comes to 189,000, 120,000. It comes to 89,000.
I don't have those figures of it.
Hassan Ayariga, I've been in the political system for a while. Hassan Ayariga gets 23,000. His pride was that he was able to beat Abu Sakara, who had 20,000. Edward Mahama has gone below Hassan Ayariga's votes.
Okay.
So
if the PNC should continue this way,
they'll become irrelevant. Someday they might probably get 5,000 votes.
Oh, that will still be a good thing.
5,000. You can get more than that if you're independent.
Okay. All right. They're still watching Editors Forum. I've been here with Winston Amwa, host of the morning show at 3FM, and also Kojo Yangson. Kojo Yangson is host of the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. Kojo, stop laughing.
Yay, you got it right.
I always get it right, don't I? Okay, well, let's quickly touch on Ghana at 60 celebrations. In Parliament, a lot of things have been happening in Parliament. And one of them also, just so I put this in, I forgot to put it in earlier, is that the Electoral Commissioner has been... Chair of the Electoral Commission has been invited to Parliament, so she'll be going there, which is expected on Wednesday. I think Wednesday she should be in Parliament, and also the Minister of National Security should also be in Parliament answering questions about the Gitmo 2. So that's something that you're looking forward to in the coming week. Ghana at 60 celebrations. We understand, I mean, previously, at the beginning, President Akufo-Addo told us that it's going to be a very modest celebration. It's a year-long celebration, but then we're not spending so much. Even what we're spending was supposed to be coming from the private sector. Well, what we're learning from Parliament this week is that we spent about 5 million already, about 5.6 million has been spent already on the Ghana 60 celebration so far, and all of the money seems to have come from government. So people are asking questions. What happened to President Akufo-Addo's initial statements that this money was going to come from the private sector and not from government? Because first they say what, 3 million, 3.1 came from government, and then the rest came from the district assembly. I mean, it's still the same government anyway. So what's happening?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused, because I recall that even soon after the committee was launched to run this celebration, we had announcements that some members of the private sector had donated money.
Yeah.
Had given money. So, not donated, but given money. So, yeah, where is that money? We're not hearing of it in this 5 point whatever.
Yeah, well, apparently the Mr. Kenamankwa, who is in charge of the committee, is, they say their plans are still ongoing. So perhaps they have some money somewhere.
No, they said they had received some money.
Yes.
They said it on the Super Morning Show.
Right.
I think it was Mr. Abu Jinapo who said it.
Okay.
So they said some money had come in. Where is it? Where is that money? Because I'm not hearing of it in this accounting that's being done by the Deputy Finance Minister. Also, it's a bit worrying to hear that's a quarter, right, of the budget came from government. In the grand scheme of things, these are not large amounts of money, bear in mind. They are not large amounts of money. However, it just goes against what we were told. Yeah. And so we need to get some reconciliation and some clarity here, because honestly, if you set out speaking so confidently that this will be funded by the private sector, you see, and I remember asking this question at the time, how do you know that the private sector will be interested in this? How can you guarantee? Because it's private money, you can't go and order a company to come and spend on your celebration. So how do you know that whatever you have available will be of interest to some private company? It's starting to look as if they didn't get the interest they expected, and so they had to go into their own pockets to fund this thing.
Bring the money.
And it makes you worry about every other policy that this government has stated will be done in conjunction with the private sector. One district, one factory, and all of these things. And you are waiting to hear the realistic figures of what they've done so far, which districts are getting factories, which companies are on board, and you still don't get the detail. Because you see, you can sit at home and announce that the private sector will do something, but there is a certain amount of work that needs to go into engaging the private sector to get them to do it. And that work is not easy. So 6 months into our 60th anniversary celebration, there is no sign of private money. That's worrying.
That's worrying. Winston?
Well, so, I mean, the president having said that it was going to have, minimum. He said he hoped that this would have a minimum budget from government, except that what we have seen so far is a quarter of that, budget coming from government. Now, Ken Amankwa makes the point that that money actually went into the celebration of the march itself, the march itself. You understand? So you have 5.6 million or something. Yeah,
5.6.
Going into the event on the
Safe March.
Safe March event, where they decided to get a sketch by Jacko, which I felt was irrelevant. They got a lot of people in. my point. I mean, in the first place, I mean, I've always made the point that I feel
How much did that sketch cost?
we don't have the figures yet.
We don't have the figures. We can ask Jacob how much you would pay.
I mean, I've always insisted that the Ghana 60 celebration was unnecessary in the first place. If you ask me, I am not a fan of having school children queuing in line to go and march, and so every.
You know the prestige that it comes with when you are there.
Well, I
as a student,
I have been. I've marched before, but it is not.
You didn't feel good.
I didn't even want to.
Oh, I see. Well, that was you.
You know, so
some of us didn't get select, but we really wanted to.
Oh, I mean, in my case, I made a lot of mistakes, but they told me, you know what, you will march. So let's continue. You know, but the point is that I do not see why we have to spend 20 million Ghana cedis on the Ghana 60 celebration. We
spent 1 million for flags on flags.
Look, an unnecessary expenditure.
Are they disposable flags?
These people, I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, Ken Amankwa has been talking, but he doesn't provide answers.
Okay.
You know, one would have expected that in saying that, oh, this one came for the 6th March celebration, if you say minimum, so far, how much have you realized from the private sector? Let us know how much you've realized from the private sector. Once we know how much you've realized from the private sector, how much of that money have you spent? You had a whole year itinerary. You talked about how you're going to establish libraries and all of that. What is the status of those projects that you talked about? These are things that we should know.
And not flags,
and
right?
not flags, and not hotel accommodation for the guests who came in. We want to know how much they spent on all of those things, because we need to be accountable to us. This is our money. This is our money. And, you know, Ken Amankwa was vice chairman of the Ghana 50 celebration, right?
Oh.
I rest my case.
You rest your case. Don't rest it yet. Oh, Kojo, do you have any, you know, follow-ups?
Little nuggets to follow that up? No, not at all.
You also rest your case. Okay, well, we're wrapping up in just a few minutes, but there's something that I really I'm not very comfortable to talk about, but I have to talk about it because there are a lot of other it concerns young women. There are a lot of other young women who need to, I don't know, be saved from themselves, from these things. I'm talking about a leaked video, was it whether leaked or deliberately put out there, about a young girl who, you know, just shows off her private parts, etc. And this is a lady who has, whose video went viral initially when he spoke about a guy that he had, you know, she had dated, etc. It makes me really uncomfortable to talk about this. But this whole phenomenon of leaked videos, leaked nude pictures, sex pictures, I don't know. Where did it come from, really?
First of all, can I ask how old she is? I don't know.
I don't know, but she looks like she'll be like, she's not a minor. Okay. She looks to me like she'll be, let's say, 17, 18,
okay,
perhaps
so she's
19.
above the age of consent.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I'm not really sure.
All right. I'm very worried about the young lady. I don't know. I don't think she's worried. She clearly doesn't seem concerned. In fact,
because perhaps she doesn't even know the consequences of what she's doing.
The troublesome aspect of this is that, did she say that it was leaked or did she put it out herself?
The video I saw after that, you know, that nasty video was of her insulting other people who were, you know, picking on her, etc. And then there was another one in which she's apologizing. So I'm really confused.
But she's not saying that it was leaked. It appears that she put it out herself.
Appears so at the moment, yes.
Okay, that's why I'm worried about the young lady, because fame came to her when she didn't really expect it.
Yeah,
she put up a post on her own Facebook page or whatever it was.
Yes, I think it was a WhatsApp message.
Yes, or something.
A guy who.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the whole world has seen it.
Yeah.
And she's getting attention for it. Okay, so you have to understand, this is a young person, okay, who is getting attention for doing something notorious. It is very easy for that young person to conclude that the way to sustain attention is by being notorious. So it is easy to imagine her wanting to top what she did. And if you look at other people who have succeeded in building a career out of notoriety, they didn't go ahead to top what they did. Rather, they capitalized on the exposure to do other things that were more relevant to society and built them a constituency. I'm talking about people like Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton. Became famous for sex videos, But their career now is not about sex. In fact, everything they've done since that sex video has been nowhere near as scandalous as the sex video. So what they did was they took their attention and diverted it to doing something else, which is of interest, which people are willing to pay to see.
All right.
Okay. She, on the other hand, has decided to go more extreme. She doesn't realize that she has already captured people's attention and ought to use it for other things. Rather, she thinks she still needs to keep capturing attention. So she's continuing to do these things. I don't know whether there are people who suggest it's a mental issue. I don't think so. I think she's a young person who's making poor decisions. But you see, in order to she needs help. In order to bring her to a point where she accepts this help, you can't condemn her. That's not what will attract her.
Okay.
Okay, you have to say something positive to this girl and make her want to pay attention to you.
Okay.
Then you can bring her in and counsel and advise her to take a better path.
All right. Well, let me take your views.
I haven't seen the video.
But you've heard of it, right?
I have heard people talk about it. If there's any law on nudity and all of that in this country, test case.
I see. Well, Kojo thinks that you have to be like
if she doesn't have a mental problem, the law must deal with her.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting thoughts that you have there. Well, we're wrapping up. Let me just tell you what you're saying on Facebook. Okay, let me start with Al-Hassan Abukari. Says, following the discussion, I'm enjoying the program. Thank you very much, Al-Hassan. James H.E. said, I know that change has come, but absolutely nothing has changed. Well, that was Kojo's line, right? Okay, Jabik Sule says, fantastic analysis from your panelists on the part of the economy. Keep it up. I'll call Stephen Gifty. Do you know that no journalist asked the question on sanitation, especially the one started by the previous government? Okay, did anybody ask anything about sanitation? The president mentioned
actually,
that.
there was about open defecation.
Yes, where he mentioned the 1 million toilets project or something like that. So you're not entirely right there. Someone asked about sanitation. As if Kojo Yankson knows something about political party communication and party communication. Paul, okay, because you're on Kojo's case.
I know nothing whatsoever about it. I don't know what they're referring to.
Paul, you say we have Volta crocodile in the Volta region. They are there terrorizing people. Okay, I don't know about that. Redwan Karim Dini Usman, thank you for the mention. And Hamza Umar Tikuma says, monitoring, thank you for watching. Gifty, kindly tell Kojo that ambassador at large is just like ministers without portfolio. Sir. Okay.
Yes, equally ineffectual on the plans and the direction of government.
I see. Well, let's wrap up with a word or two for the week. What are you expecting in terms of news this week?
Well, I think the two appearances at Parliament will yield some interesting news. This petition will continue along its official course, and I'm sure there will be more coming up for us to discuss on that. I certainly hope that we don't have too much of this young lady in the headlines.
Me too.
Yeah, let's find a way of giving her help if she needs it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
We'll move on from there. You?
Let's see what happens.
Okay, thank you so much for doing the watching. Pardon me for going back and forth with my polls and the editors forum and all of that. I host polls in the weekday, so I guess a lady can be confused a bit at some point, can't you? No, hi. Of course, my guests here have been Kojo Yankson, host of the Super Morning Show. Join him early tomorrow morning on Joy 99.7 FM and of course 3 FM. Winston Amwa. Winston, what's the
92.7.
92.7, 3 FM. You can join him as well. My name is Gifty Andopia. I've been doing this with Sheila, Tosh on camera, David on camera, and if I don't remember your name, forgive me. Forgive also the producer for the show. Thank you very much. In 30 minutes, we bring you Joy News Prime. Please stay tuned. Thank you.